Have you ever been struck by that feeling, when you meet someone and it's like, you've known them forever?
Hmm.
Or maybe you found yourself in a string of relationships that feel, well, strangely familiar, even when you really wish they didn't.
Oh, absolutely.
It really makes you wonder if there's more going on with attraction, with connection, than just what we consciously, see on the surface.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Because those powerful initial pulls, that sense of familiarity you just mentioned, very often they can be traced right back.
Back where?
Back to the emotional landscape of our earliest years. It's not just some random feeling. Psychoanalysis suggests these connections often, well, echo the relationships that first shaped us as children.
Right, okay. It's kind of a wild thought, though, that those first deep bonds, especially, say, with our parents, could act like a sort of template for our adult love life.
A template or maybe a blueprint?
But it's not like we're consciously out there looking for a carbon copy of mom or dad, is it?
Huh.
It feels much more, I don't know, subtle than that. Hidden, almost.
Precisely. That's the key. It operates largely beneath the surface, in the realm of the unconscious.
Okay.
Think of those early relationships as laying down these deep grooves, you could say, in our emotional wiring. So even when we consciously want something different, strive for it,
Yeah.
our unconscious can sort of keep nudging us back towards what just feels familiar, for better or sometimes for worse.
Which makes me think about, when people seem to repeat relationship patterns over and over, even when they're clearly not happy with them.
Yes.
It's like there's this invisible pull pulling them back. Is that what's sometimes called repetition compulsion? It sounds a bit strange, doesn't it? Why would we be drawn to recreate past pain?
That's a very astute observation. And you're right, on the surface, it can seem completely self-defeating. Why go back there?
Exactly.
But psychoanalytically speaking, this drive to repeat, it's often fueled by an unconscious attempt, really, to gain mastery over those earlier unresolved conflicts. It's as if we're trying to replay a scene from our past, maybe hoping for a different ending this time around, to finally work through something that felt unfinished or maybe painful back in our childhood.
So if someone, say, consistently ends up with partners who are really emotionally distant, could it be their unconscious trying to, I don't know, finally get the connection they missed out on way back when?
That's a powerful way to frame it, yes. The unconscious might be seeking to recreate that familiar dynamic precisely in the hope of achieving a different outcome this time.
Like finally winning them over.
Perhaps finally earning that unavailable caregiver's love or attention, yes. But the tension we feel, that inner conflict, often arises when our conscious longing for a fulfilling, warm relationship clashes with this unconscious pull towards the familiar, even if that familiarity brings disappointment.
It's like your head knows what you want, logically.
Exactly. But your heart, or perhaps more accurately, your unconscious, keeps leading you down that same old familiar path.
It's almost like we're not really seeing our partners clearly then, are we?
Yeah.
But projecting these old relationship dynamics onto them instead, that sounds a bit like transference. Is that right?
Exactly right. Transference. In therapy, we see this quite clearly sometimes. Individuals might relate to the therapist as they would have to a parent figure, for example.
Okay.
And the very same dynamic plays out, often much less consciously, in our romantic lives. We might see a new partner through the lens of our past experiences. We might attribute characteristics or expect certain behaviors based purely on those early relationships rather than truly seeing the person standing right in front of us for who they are right now.
Can you give an example?
Well, sure. Let's say if you felt constantly judged as a child. You might then be hypersensitive to any perceived criticism from your partner later in life, even if their intention is totally different, You're reacting to the echo.
Wow. And when we start to notice these patterns in ourselves, I mean, it can be pretty unsettling, can't it? It feels almost easier sometimes to just dismiss it. Like, oh, it's just bad luck, or I just haven't met the right person yet. That feels like some kind of protection, maybe.
That's precisely the role of what psychoanalysis calls defense mechanisms. Things like denial or rationalization.
Right.
They shield us effectively from the anxiety that comes with confronting these really deeply rooted patterns. It's often less threatening psychologically to explain away similarities as, oh, mere coincidence, than to acknowledge that our choices might actually be significantly shaped by our unconscious history. It can be really uncomfortable to face the idea that our past is, well, much more present in our lives than we tend to realize.
So just to be clear, this isn't about blaming our parents, right?
Yeah.
We're saying we're somehow doomed to just repeat the past forever.
Not at all. No, that's crucial.
It's more about understanding these almost invisible threads, the ones connecting our early experiences to our present relationships.
Precisely. The aim isn't blame, it's awareness, understanding. Because by understanding these unconscious influences, we can begin to see that what might feel like a simple preference, someone saying, oh, I'm just not attracted to nice people, for instance.
Yeah, I've heard
Right, that could actually be rooted in a psychological necessity, an unconscious drive perhaps to revisit and potentially resolve earlier experiences, or maybe niceness felt unfamiliar or possibly even threatening in some way.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me then. You mentioned resistance earlier.
Yeah.
How does that show up in our romantic choices? Because it feels like sometimes we can intellectually grasp these patterns, maybe even talk about them, but still feel completely, utterly stuck in them. Like we can't change.
Yes, resistance is a very powerful force, a really powerful force. Even when we consciously desire change, perhaps we enter therapy, or consciously try to make different choices in relationships, our unconscious can actively work against that progress.
How does it do that?
Well, it might manifest as, say, a reluctance to fully explore certain painful memories, or a tendency to just keep repeating old behaviors despite our intellectual understanding of why they're not really serving us. In relationships, this could look like repeatedly gravitating towards partners who embody that familiar, albeit maybe unhealthy dynamic, even when we consciously long for something different, something healthier.
It's like there's a strange comfort in the familiar, isn't there? Even if that familiarity is actually linked to pain.
That's a really profound observation. It really is. The familiar, even if it's negative, can feel psychologically safer than, venturing into the complete unknown. Our unconscious developed these patterns, often as a form of protection, a way of navigating the world based on what we learned early on, even if those lessons were difficult.
So letting go feels risky.
Letting go of these ingrained patterns can feel incredibly vulnerable, yes. Like stepping off a familiar path, even if it's rocky, into totally uncharted territory. It feels dangerous somehow.
You also touched on this idea of libido, and you said it's not just about sexual energy, but more like a general drive for connection. How does that link back to these early relationships?
Right. So our earliest experiences of connection, or maybe the lack of it, deeply shape how our fundamental drive for connection, our libido in that broader sense, expresses itself in future relationships.
Oh.
If those early attachments were marked by, say, frustration, inconsistency, or even trauma, it can lead to what psychoanalysis describes as compromise formations in our adult relationship.
Compromise formations.
Yes, these might manifest as repetitive behaviors or anxieties that, in a way, both express our fundamental desire for intimacy and simultaneously protect us from the potential pain of rejection or disappointment echoing those early experiences.
So it's doing two things at once.
Exactly. It's like our need for closeness is always intertwined with a kind of fear. A fear of getting hurt in the same way we might have been hurt early on.
So choosing a partner who is, let's say, emotionally unavailable. That could be a way of both seeking a kind of connection, maybe that familiar struggle for affection you mentioned, and also protecting oneself from the vulnerability of true intimacy, especially if that intimacy felt unsafe or inconsistent way back in childhood.
That's a very insightful way to put it. Yes, the symptom, in this case, the choice of partner, becomes a kind of compromise. It partially satisfies that innate need for connection, whilst simultaneously defending against the fear of vulnerability that's rooted in past experiences. It's a really complex dance, between our deepest desires and our oldest defenses.
And what about repression? This idea of pushing painful memories, difficult feelings out of our conscious awareness. How do those buried experiences still manage to kind of call the shots in our relationships?
Well, even when something is repressed, pushed out of our conscious awareness, it doesn't just vanish. It doesn't disappear.
It's still there.
It continues to exert a powerful influence from the unconscious. Those unresolved childhood wounds, those unacknowledged feelings, they can resurface in our adult relationships, often drawing us to partners or creating dynamics that somehow resonate with those buried experiences, even if we consciously have no idea why we're doing it.
Why would it do that?
It's as if the unconscious is constantly seeking an opportunity to process and perhaps finally heal those earlier pains, even if the way it goes about it seems, completely counterproductive on the surface.
Huh. It's almost like our past is constantly trying to find its way into our present, isn't it? Especially in our most intimate connections.
Precisely. And sometimes dreams can offer a glimpse into this interplay between past and present. Well, the way current partners might subtly shift in our dreams, maybe take on characteristics of parental figures or vice versa, that can reveal those deep unconscious connections, those unresolved emotional threads linking our earliest attachments to our current relationships. It's like a reminder that our internal world is constantly working, trying to make sense of all our experiences, past and present.
So, okay, what does all of this mean for us then? If we start to recognize these echoes, these patterns in our own lives, what can we actually do with that awareness? It sounds a bit overwhelming.
It can feel that way, certainly, but the very act of recognition, just noticing it, that's a crucial first step. A huge step, actually. Yes, because it brings these unconscious influences out of the shadows into the light of conscious awareness. And that in itself provides an opportunity for change. It's about beginning to understand the deeper why behind our choices. Not as a way to judge ourselves, absolutely not, but as a path. A path to gaining insight into our most fundamental needs and fears when it comes to relationships.
It sounds like this isn't a quick fix, though. I mean, just having that aha moment and realizing, oh, wow, I'm repeating this pattern, that isn't going to magically make it disappear overnight, is it?
You're absolutely right. It usually doesn't work like that. Freud talked about the concept of working through.
Working through.
Yes, the often lengthy and definitely ongoing process of truly understanding and integrating these insights into our lives. It requires time, definitely patience, and often a willingness to just sit with uncomfortable feelings as we gradually unravel these deeply ingrained patterns, and then slowly learn new, maybe healthier ways of relating both to ourselves and to others.
It's kind of like looking in a mirror maybe and finally seeing not just your current reflection, but also the faint outline of someone from your past sort of superimposed on it. That moment of recognition must be pretty significant.
It can be a truly profound moment, yes. A mirror of recognition, as you put it. I like that. It can bring such a sense of clarity to previously inexplicable attractions or those recurring conflicts that keep popping up in our relationships. It marks the beginning, really, of understanding the subtle but incredibly powerful ways our past continues to shape our present, often in ways we might never have consciously realized before.
And even though these early influences, as psychoanalysis describes them, are so powerful, there's still a belief in the potential for change, right? Through this kind of conscious understanding. So we're not just puppets of our past.
Exactly. That's the hopeful part. While our early relationships undoubtedly cast long shadows, developing awareness gives us something crucial back. It gives us a degree of agency.
Agency, choice.
Yes. Once we begin to understand the unconscious forces at play, we can start to make more conscious, more intentional choices. It's not about trying to erase the past that's impossible and probably not even desirable. It's about understanding its influence, acknowledging it, and then consciously choosing a different path forward in our relationships if, of course, we desire a different outcome.
So maybe a good question for you listening is, as you think about your own relationships, present or past, do you notice any echoes, any of those patterns we've been talking about? What kind of unconscious shadows maybe might be influencing your choices right now?
And remember, this isn't about assigning blame or finding fault. Not in ourselves, not in our partners, not in those who were part of our early lives. It's really about cultivating a deeper understanding. Understanding the intricate forces that shape our most intimate connections. And perhaps recognizing the potential for personal growth that comes with that awareness. It's an ongoing journey.
Yeah, definitely an ongoing journey. Maybe consider those invisible threads, the ones connecting your past and your present. What stories do they tell about you, about your relationships? And maybe most importantly, what might you learn from really listening closely to those stories?